Rick, I just saw this up on the screen as we're about to talk. Vladimir Putin using Black Lives Matter, the arrest of January 6th, to deflect on his own human rights abuses, and says, well, America mass arrested a bunch of people, and so I don't want to get into those details. We don't want to have that happen in Russia. And the question was just the question he was asked was that if all your opponents are in jail or dead or outside the country, how can there be fair elections in your country? And he pivots very quickly. But I want to get your thoughts, Rick, just initially. We're just learning kind of what was discussed, what actually happened in this 4-hour plus meeting. But your just initial reactions.
Well, I'm listening to Putin's press conference right now, and I think you're right. The language that he's using is clearly the talking points from the Democrats about systemic racism. And that's troubling. I mean, I think that this is a warning for the Democratic Party that all of their criticism of America, and I would say unfounded criticism, by saying, when you use the word systemic racism, you mean that the entire system, the entire operation is built to be racist. That is not true. And yet they continue to say it. And now our enemies and others are picking up this language and using it against us. We saw the Chinese use this in Alaska. We see the Russians are using this. I see Middle Eastern leaders from the NGO community beginning to use this language, and it's very troubling.
Rick, another word that the Russians are pushing a lot of, and it'll be interesting to see if Joe Biden uses any of that same language, but that this word stability keeps being used over and over and again. And I think it sounds nice. Stability sounds great if you can have stability in world affairs, stability between adversaries, if it all adds up. But is that the Russian way of stability, of just saying, hey, we basically, we want you off our backs? He even said in one of the translations was, we talked about red lines on cybersecurity, but we didn't actually we didn't get to any definitions of where those red lines would be.
Well, first of all, on cybersecurity, President Putin just completely blamed the United States, Canada, Great Britain, and Latin American countries for cyber attacks. He said it does not come from Russia, which we know is typical Putin speak. He always tries to pretend like everything is fine. And this gets at your question about stability. We have to be very clear that stability is not peace. It can be peace, but usually when leaders like Putin use stability, what they mean is you be quiet in fear. It's not peaceful. It's a stable situation for the government to then completely be corrupt. And that's not peaceful. And I think that not using the word, peaceful is a real, poignant moment.
Rick, I'm curious as, ultimately, what do you think comes out of this? What's the achievement here? What happens after this? Because at this point, other than making Putin look strong and principled in his own perverse way, what else happens?
Well, first of all, President Putin is going to sit through G7 statements, press statements from the White House, maybe even some remarks from Biden and from the press. And he will be very pleased because at the end of the day, he's going home with a pipeline of influence and cash for the next several decades. He is so pleased that this culminated with a Russian pipeline of leverage for 20 plus years that he'll sit through any uncomfortable press moments or press statement moments. He's also decided, I see the announcement, that our ambassadors will be able to go back. That's certainly a good thing. But I think this gets to Jordan's question about stability. Having our ambassadors go back plays into this idea that everything is stable and therefore fine. But I think that we have to be able to work and have transparency and look for peace rather than just this facade of stability.
States comes out of this? There's a lot coming out to benefit Russia.
Yeah, I don't see where we have gotten anything. I think we have sacrificed a lot, and I can't come up with anything other than our ambassador goes back, but our embassy has been open. Others have been there. Our ambassadors go back, but that's such a diplomatic nicety that's not really a gift to the United States.
Right.
Hey, Rick, Than here. I just wanted to follow up on that real quick. I mean, we're all on Team America here. All of us have a vested interest in the American president, no matter who he is, doing well in situations like this and, demonstrating and articulating American leadership in the world. I don't know how he pulls that off now, quite frankly. After the optics of seeing Vladimir Putin come out and sort of take the lead in this press conference, declining to appear alongside of him, I'm just interested in your perspective on this. Is there something that President Biden could do following up on this press conference to keep Vladimir Putin from emerging, with the upper hand in all this, or has Vladimir Putin already accomplished that?
It's a great question. I think Biden is looking weak. He's looking weak out of the G7. I mean, there were moments in those videos that I thought my video stopped because he was, in meltdown mode, and my video didn't stop. It was Joe Biden kind of his mind collapsing. And so you see that, you see the British leader putting his hand over to Joe Biden a couple of times to kind of shush him and say, we've already discussed that, Joe. President Biden, laughing, almost being laughed at, but not realizing it, fumbling. Now he's not able to do a press conference with Putin. He's given up our Nord Stream 2 policy by giving the pipeline to the Russians. I think he looks incredibly weak, and we see not only Russia, but China and others beginning to test him. They're moving troops into Ukraine. Now we see some action over near Hawaii, military action from the Russians. And so it's clear that they don't fear him, and they're just clapping and applauding him because he's so weak.
Yeah, so I mean, we will see Biden's press conference, Rick. My final question for you, though, Rick, before we'll get to that, and then ultimately get some analysis there. But with everything that Putin is saying, I want to go back to what you said. He is seizing, and he's done this before, but he is seizing on American domestic political divisions and just ramming that home through every single question, every single response. I mean, the fact that he invoked Black Lives Matter, that it was the direct translation was Black Lives Matter, and the protests in the streets in America, the unrest, the January 6th, but also what he was talking about was the arrest of Americans on January 6th. So, well, you put down opposition, so I put down opposition. This, to me, again, the way we talk about what's going on in our own country, it's just on display about how important that is.
Look, we can have political differences at home, and they can be very, tough rhetoric and fights. But what President Biden did at the G7 was really, and NATO, he opened us up by critiquing Republicans. He opened up the rest of the world to critique Republicans. He did not have a unified message.
I've never seen anything like that before, where you have a world leader internationally talking about domestic political parties in his own country and the turmoil he wishes they were having. Rick, it's always great to have you, especially during this summit.